Reborn, my best friend stole my wedding dress design. The last thing I remembered from my first life was the flash of studio lights and my own name being read out as a disqualified contestant, live, in front of 9 million viewers, while my best friend accepted the trophy for a dress I had designed with my own hands. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting in the exact same green room, sketchpad open on my lap, 40 minutes before that broadcast began. "You nervous?" Priya Malhotra asked from the mirror across the room, pinning a loose curl into place, radiant in the confidence of someone who already knew how the night would end. "Final round jitters." In my first life, that sentence had sounded like warmth. This time, knowing what I knew, it sounded like a woman checking whether her prey was still asleep. 6 years of friendship. 6 years of late-night sketching sessions, of her borrowing my sketchbook to get inspired, of small design details I'd casually mention over coffee showing up in her portfolio a week later with just enough alteration to call it coincidence. I had explained away every single one of those coincidences, because Priya was my best friend, and best friends didn't do that. Best friends also didn't submit my exact bridal gown, the beaded cathedral train, the asymmetric neckline I'd redrawn 11 times, the hand-embroidered constellation pattern I'd designed for my late grandmother's wedding photo, to the Bridal Vision National Final under her own name, 3 days before I could submit it myself, using a photo she'd taken of my sketchbook for reference. In my first life, I hadn't known that until the judges held up 2 nearly identical gowns on live television and Priya, without missing a beat, accused me of copying her. I'd frozen. I hadn't had proof ready. I'd looked exactly as guilty as she needed me to look, and the show's disqualification clause for design plagiarism, pending review, had done the rest. My career ended before it started. Priya's began with a trophy and a magazine spread calling her fashion's most exciting new voice. This time, I didn't freeze. I smiled at her in the mirror. "Not nervous at all," I said. "I finally feel ready." I had 11 months this time, the length of the show's production calendar from casting to final, and I intended to spend every single one of them building something Priya couldn't talk her way around. The first thing I did, the very next morning, was stop showing her my sketches. "You've been distant," she said, 3 weeks in, watching me close my sketchbook the moment she walked into our shared studio space. "Is something wrong?" "Just protecting my process," I said lightly. "I read that showing work too early can water down the final vision. Thought I'd try holding it closer this season." It wasn't a lie. It also wasn't the whole truth, and I watched something flicker behind her eyes, not guilt, I realized. Calculation. She was recalibrating. The second thing I did was date everything. Every sketch got a timestamp and a photo, uploaded to a private cloud folder the moment I finished it, backed up to an external drive I kept in a safety deposit box, not our shared apartment. In my first life, I had never once thought to protect my own work from someone I trusted completely. This time, I protected it like a woman who already knew exactly how betrayal tasted. The third thing I did was harder. I started designing the actual final dress somewhere Priya had no access to at all, a small rented studio across town, paid for in cash, under a friend's name, 3 evenings a week under the excuse of extra shifts at the boutique. I felt guilty about the deception exactly once. Then I remembered 9 million viewers watching my disqualification, and the guilt evaporated into something colder and far more useful. The cathedral train gown came together slowly, piece by piece, in that rented studio, the asymmetric neckline, the constellation embroidery I'd redesigned from my grandmother's photograph, every bead placed by my own hands, photographed and dated at every single stage. I built a paper trail thick enough that no judge, no lawyer, no viewer squinting at a screen could ever again mistake authorship. Priya, meanwhile, grew stranger. Quieter around me, oddly probing. "You haven't shown me the final concept," she said one night, watching me over a glass of wine with an expression I now recognized. Too late in my first life, too early to matter in this one. Hunger disguised as curiosity. "Trade secret," I said, smiling. "Even from you. We used to share everything." "We did," I agreed. "I'm trying something different this year." She didn't push further that night. 3 days later, I came home to find my old sketchbook, the decoy one I'd deliberately left in our shared apartment, filled with rejected early drafts and a few carefully planted final concept sketches that bore only a loose resemblance to the actual gown taking shape across town, sitting slightly out of place on my desk. Not where I'd left it. Turned 3 degrees, the way a page looks when someone's flipped through it quickly and tried to put it back exactly right. I said nothing. I let her think she'd found what she was looking for. 10 days before the final broadcast, Priya submitted her entry. I learned this the way I'd learned everything that mattered this time, through the show's production coordinator, a tired, meticulous woman named Farida Kui who ran final round logistics and, crucially, required every finalist to submit a design timeline with dated concept sketches as part of the network's new plagiarism prevention policy, a policy added, I would later learn with a bitter kind of irony, specifically because of what had happened to me in my first life, after enough. Contestants over the years had complained about uncredited inspiration. I submitted mine without hesitation, 11 months of dated sketches, photographed progress shots from the rented studio, receipts for fabric and beading purchased under my own name, and a notarized statement from the studio's landlord confirming 3 evenings a week of continuous access since early spring. Priya submitted a folder with exactly 4 sketches, undated, and a design timeline that I would learn later. Once everything unraveled on national television, she'd hastily assembled the week before, working backward from my decoy sketchbook's loosely similar drafts. She had copied the wrong dress. The final broadcast began exactly as it had in my first life, the same lights, the same nervous energy backstage, Priya radiant and certain in a way that used to comfort me and now simply confirmed everything I already knew. When the judges revealed both gowns side by side under the studio lights, the cathedral train and the constellation embroidery sat identical between us, exactly as they had before. This time, though, Priya's face didn't hold the calm certainty of a woman about to accuse someone else. It held panic, because this time, she knew she had to know, somewhere underneath the performance, that I hadn't shown her the real design at all. Whatever she'd copied from that decoy sketchbook wasn't close enough to hold up under real scrutiny, not against a paper trail 11 months deep. "These gowns," said lead judge Marcus Reyes, studying both designs with a slow, deliberate frown, "are remarkably similar. We'll need to review submitted design timelines before scoring proceeds." Priya's composure cracked half a second before the cameras caught it. "I can explain the similarity," she said quickly. "Elena and I have worked together for years, we naturally influence each other's aesthetic." "That may be true," Farida Kui said, stepping forward with a tablet in hand, her voice calm and utterly unbothered by the live cameras trained on her, "but the network's plagiarism prevention review requires documented design timelines for any submissions flagged as visually similar. Miss Voss's submission includes 11 months of dated, photographed development. Miss Malhotra's includes 4 undated sketches submitted within the final production week." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I had ever heard in either of my lives. "I want to see both timelines," Marcus said. They appeared on the studio's massive screen for the entire live audience, 9 million viewers. Exactly as many as had watched my disqualification the first time, watching now as my 11 months of proof unfolded in chronological, Undeniable order beside Priya's 4 hastily assembled sketches with no dates at all. Priya didn't wait for the judges to announce a verdict. She turned and walked off the stage mid-broadcast, the first time in the show's history a finalist had withdrawn live on air. I stood alone under the studio lights in the gown I'd built with my own hands, beaded, embroidered, dated, and undeniably mine. "Congratulations, Elena Voss," Marcus said, once the room found its collective breath again. "Your design and your documentation speak for themselves." The trophy felt lighter than I'd imagined it would in my first life, watching Priya lift it from a distance I never got to close. In this life, it felt exactly as heavy as 11 months of quiet, careful, unglamorous work, which is to say, it felt earned. Priya didn't contact me after the broadcast. I heard, secondhand, months later, that she'd left the design world entirely, working in retail merchandising under her married name, far from cameras and juries and dated timelines that couldn't be argued with. I didn't feel triumphant when I heard that. I felt something quieter, relief, mostly, that I'd finally learned the difference between loving someone and protecting myself from them, and that those two things had never actually needed to cancel each other out. A year later, I opened my own small atelier, 3 blocks from the rented studio where the winning gown had first taken shape. Above the door, in gold lettering I designed myself, it reads simply, "Elena Voss Original." Not a slogan. A receipt. If you loved watching Elena turn 11 months of quiet proof into an undeniable live TV reckoning, hit that like button and subscribe for more Reborn revenge stories every week. Let us know in the comments, should Priya have gotten a second chance, or did she burn that bridge the moment she opened the sketchbook?